Good morning, everyone. Day 8, Hormone Bootcamp. So, this week we are now going to be dealing with vitamin D. This is the one supplement that I've used for vitamin D. I'm going to talk a little bit about this and also talk a little bit about transitioning from, supplements into a plant-based diet. So this is actually going to go also for some of my vegan followers who may not be wanting to use animal-based products. I'm going to talk a little bit about what to do in that case. But so first and foremost, for those of you who don't know, I am for the most part on a plant-based diet. However, my view of food is I treat food as medicine. So I don't ever limit myself to anything. I don't really classify myself as being paleo, keto, or vegan or anything like that. I just continue to research and experiment and just basically listen to my body and do what's best for me. And so, one of the ideas that I've essentially developed or that I've been understanding through all my research is that when it comes to food and diet and or supplements, I find that there are foods that really help the body to heal the body physically. And then I find that there are foods that actually help you more with your mental health, right? And this is why for me, I don't mind using animal-based products because I find that these are very effective, but I use them sparingly. And so this is a product that I use more of, I think of it as a seasonal product. So I want to talk about how I use this product, when I've used it, and how it has helped me. Number one, like I said, I treat it as a seasonal product, and it's one of the products that I believe that, well, let me rephrase this and put it this way. I believe that we are meant to adapt. Okay, there's always going to be changes. There's always going to be situations where we can't do everything that we are used to doing. And without knowing, how products and, how our diets and bodies work, it can be hard for us to basically, adapt to different environments. So the way that I think about this is ideally, you would be getting your vitamin D directly from the sun. That's usually the best source, but that can only happen. And really, it's not that it can only happen, but the best place to do that is the closer you are to the equator, and your diet needs to be right for it, meaning you need to have a good a good amount of chlorophyll in your diet. Chlorophyll is a pigment. A pigment, basically, if you Google what a pigment does, it takes sun like light energy and it basically transfers it over and it makes it usable for the body. So if you're not drinking greens or eating greens, anything green, that the darker the green, like your kale, your spinach, and things like that, the more chlorophyll it has. So if you don't have that in your diet, you're not going to be able to go out and get sunlight and get vitamin D from the sun. You also need to have a clear and clean skin. Otherwise, your skin's going to burn, because, what happens with the body is your body basically creates toxins, and then the toxins get flushed out through the lymph system. The lymph system, basically, you have all these pores on your skin, and that's what, whenever you sweat, you're basically pushing out all the toxicity. When those pores get clogged, then that's when your body begins to accumulate toxicity, and that's when your body begins to create body fat to protect itself from all of that toxicity. And that's why, I talk about how your skin is supposed to be paper thin. You're supposed to be able to pinch it all throughout. And if you can't do that, then it's very hard for your body to get vitamin D from the sun. But again, that's one way to do it. The other way, buenos dias, good morning, Sushi. The other way to get, vitamin D is through healthy fats. Now, healthy fats, this is more of the Inuit diet. So, if you go way up north where there's not as much sun exposure, and even if there is sun, the angle of the sun is just not the same. That's why people up there were relying on their diet to get vitamin D. And that's why these are traditional foods. This is basically why, for me, traditional foods and fermentation, I think of it as wisdom. This is people, cultures who learn to survive in different environments, and these are the things that they were doing, and this is how they would get their vitamin D. That's why they wouldn't have any sort of vegetables in their diets, no greens, but they still get vitamin D. How will they do it? Well, they eat a lot of fish and they used to do a lot of fermented food. So fermented cod liver oil is the one thing that I did for that. And so my approach to raising my vitamin D level started out with diet, because I was trying to get these probiotics, whatever ferments, the cod liver oil, it's a salt tolerant lactobacillus, and it needs a high salt, environment, right? A fatty type of environment. That's why ketogenic for me has been the best diet to raise my vitamin D levels. And that is basically one of the steps towards hormone production. Vitamin D is technically a hormone, right? You can Google this, but it's a prohormone, and it's where a lot of your other hormones derive from. Between that and cholesterol, that's basically where it all comes from. And so understanding all of that, now you start to understand my diet and why, like today I have my ketogenic smoothie, and I won't pull it out right now because I'm driving. But you've seen my video where I share, and so you can see that when I talk about vitamin D, I don't ever want anyone to think that the only vitamin you're going to supplement with is vitamin D, because vitamin D needs other nutrients. It needs other vitamins for it to, for the body to be able to actually use it and absorb it. And so you're really looking for vitamins A, D, E, and K. And these are fat soluble vitamins. So once you understand that, now you understand why my diet right now, or yeah, why my diet is primarily a plant-based ketogenic. And it's because that's what helps me get these vitamins into my body. And it's just what I'm finding is the most efficient, effective diet. It's like, I like to look for minimal type of like, I'm kind of like a minimalistic type of person, if you want to think of it that way. Like, I like to do things where it's like the minimum effort I can get or I can do, so I can get the most amount of value out of it, right? I do that in many areas of my life. And so diet is no exception for me. And so you look at my ketogenic smoothie, it's basically distilled water as my base, and I add coconut oil. I add avocados. Avocados have a lot of vitamin E and K. I do pumpkin seeds, which gives me a lot of vitamin A, and well, not really vitamin A, but the precursor to it, which is beta carotene. But it also has a lot of like iron, copper, zinc, and all these other minerals, right? We've been talking about minerals, so you're starting to see how I look for these minerals. I look for these nutrients into my diet. And then everything else that I add from that is, different. I vary it, but I usually have cacao nibs and chlorella. I do Ayurvedic herbs. Sometimes I do turmeric, sometimes I don't. I'll do cinnamon, pumpkin spice. Those are just more for flavor, although there are benefits to those as well. I use mucuna pruriens, and between cacao nibs and mucuna pruriens, that helps me with focus, right? So I'm basically trying to also feed, my brain. So it's not just about feeding the body. I think you have to feed your brain, and that's part of, for me, managing stress. Diet is a big part of it. Ina, having chlorophyll in your body makes us more like plants. Is there a synergy with the vitamin D capsules? Um, Synergy. Let me see if I can think of this in a way. So my idea, I guess, with starting with the vitamin D capsules and using as far as like, is there a synergy? The way that I think of it is, um, every hormone in your body, every vitamin is produced by some sort of bacteria, some sort of probiotic in your body. And so my whole idea, and the reason why I started out with the vitamin D with fermented cod liver oil, was because I wasn't sure if I had that bacteria in me, and the chances of me having that bacteria, because I was low in vitamin D, that to me was a sign that, hey, either I don't have the environment, I'm not eating the right foods, or I don't have the right bacteria. And so I basically went through that checklist, and instead of thinking, okay, I probably do have the bacteria. I'm just going to do everything else. I said, no, I'm just going to inoculate myself with the bacteria. So I'm thinking like a brewer, right? As a brewer, if I'm trying to brew a Hefeweizen, I'm not going to add a lager yeast strain to my beer because I'm not going to get a Hefeweizen. I need that specific strain of bacteria or a yeast that we use for Hefeweizen beers, which creates like a banana-like, clove-like flavor and aroma that only comes from that strain. And that's one of the reasons why for week 4, when we start talking about the green juice and the probiotics, the probiotics that I go after, that I seek out, are probiotics that I know are known to reduce the yeast candida overgrowth. And so the synergy, I guess, would be that if you don't have the probiotics that make vitamin D, then your body's just not going to be functioning well because it doesn't have the worker bees, if you want to call it that. You don't have the workforce to produce those, that vitamin D. So one way to think of this is, if you take this, you have the probiotics, and once you have them in you, especially as you start doing your probiotics, you begin to understand that, like, all I'm doing, like the way that I think of my health is, I am just like I take care of my probiotics externally on like at my kitchen, I'm taking care of my probiotics internally, right? So I'm constantly cleaning out my environment, adding minerals, making sure that I'm feeding the right bacteria and keeping away toxicity, right? So I'm just basically improving in that way. And so that's why I say, like, for this to me is seasonal. I don't feel like I need to take this all the time. But there are times where I feel like, because one of the things that you're going to start to notice is that just because you start eating healthy and doing all of these things, it doesn't mean that you're just going to become superhuman, because we're still exposed to so much toxicity in various different ways. I mean, from the moment you wake up, you take showers. If you don't have a shower dechlorinator, guess what? You're being exposed to chlorines just by taking a shower. Your skin's absorbing all of that. There's smells. Like, if you work in an office environment, you go shopping, there's mold in the air, there's things that, they're going to make it into your body. And so no matter what, you're constantly being attacked and bombarded. So unless you totally isolate yourself and go into nature, if you're in the city, you're just basically going to be dealing with this. And that's why it's just work, continuous work. But you know, that's basically what why for me these are tools. We're going into a cold season here at work, and I know, like, just a few weeks ago, people at work started to, like, show up, and they're sneezing, they're coughing, and they're just, you know basically showing flu-like symptoms. Me being around that, guess what, I started to feel like, oh, my throat is starting to itch a little bit. I literally went and I actually made a video on this where I literally showed, like, I took about 20 of these capsules. I woke up the next day and no, like, nothing. Why? Because vitamin D, like, like I mentioned yesterday, this is a direct measure of how strong your gut and immune system is. The higher your vitamin D levels are, the stronger your immune system is, right? If you have autoimmune issues, guess what? Your immune system is weak. And that's why it is no coincidence. And I'm not, like, totally surprised at all that most people that have autoimmune conditions, if not pretty much everyone, has low levels of vitamin D. And that's basically where where that starts. The other thing, let's see. Okay. So so she said, like, keeps freezing. I wasn't sure if you're talking about the video or you, because funny enough, one of the things that I was gonna mention is, with vitamin D, one of the things that I notice is the more of this that I the higher my vitamin D levels started to get, the higher my body temperature started to also get. And I think that this is one of the things that regulates body temperature. It's a vitamin D. And I think that's why Arizona has a huge snowbird population, people that come, here during the winter time, because, you're able to go out and get some sunshine, and, that raises your vitamin D levels, which really, improves a lot of, different things. I mean, just your immune system alone, that's like 80% of your health. So let me see. I think I had a couple. I had another thing that I wanted to share with this today. Oh yeah. So, and that's the other thing that you're going to notice. So, one of the things that I noticed that was happening with me was that I was getting sick so easily, and I remember prior to me doing a lot of this, like I used to get warts on my hands, and at first I thought that I probably just went to the gym and probably from grabbing the bars, and someone else might have had some, and that's how I got it. I know that was my idea before, but I remember that when I started doing this, and especially when I started to learn that, like I said, I know that right now, I mentioned, you're just starting out with like 2 capsules in the morning and 2 at night, and that's like just like a good steady way to do it. But this to me is food. This is not like anything weird or anything that you should be worried about. And that's why I made that video where I just like literally took 20 capsules. I gave this to my grandma. She was in a car accident. The car was T-boned. She was riding in the back seat on the side, like right directly where the impact happened. And so she had, broken ribs, punctured lungs. Like we were really worried because, grandma, she's older, and we weren't sure if she was going to make it. And so I basically would, go visit her at the hospital, and I would bring her a ton of like, beef bone broth, and a lot of vitamin D, and she recovered fast, and she felt the difference when I gave her this, to the point where like every time that I get her one of this. Last time I did, I asked her, because at first she wasn't being consistent with taking them, but now that she knows like how good she feels with it, last time I got her a bottle, she wasn't feeling too well, and so I got her a bottle, and then I asked her later on, it's like Nana, did you take your vitamin D? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, how much left do you have? And she's like, oh, I took the whole bottle. She just took the whole bottle in one sitting. And I was just laughing, but she feels like so good with it. But I mean, that's basically like where I'm at with this. Like if I ever need a boost, if I ever like feel like, you know what, I haven't been taking care of my diet or something, or I'm in an environment where I can't get as much sunshine, if I'm not going out, mountain biking or paddleboarding, or, whatever I do that gets me out into the sun. If it's winter time, if I'm traveling, especially if I'm going like snowboarding and things like that, then I make sure that I have, something like this, in case that I feel like my vitamin D levels are starting to, get low. And so those are just, I guess, some of the ideas and things, and, ways that I use this supplement. And so you guys are going to just, start out with like taking 2 capsules at night and 2 in the morning, just see how you feel. But then later on, you can experiment. And, if you ever feel like, hey, okay, I want to really try to boost, my vitamin D, and just, you can just start basically taking it. I mean, there's really no limit as far as, how much of this you can take, but you'll feel the difference. And I'm looking forward to hear from some of you who decide to experiment, and let me know what your results and what you find, is happening. But I'm getting to work, and I didn't talk about transitioning. Well, chlorophyll, you're gonna have to be adding more greens to it, and cleaning your skin basically. So for all my vegan friends, if you're not taking this, you should be doing the green juice. To start doing green juice, if you can, don't just do the powder, but take time to do like actual fresh pressed green juice. Like I said, the darker the green, the better, and reduce the amount of sugar while you're doing that. And then just make it a commitment to get at least 5 to 10 minutes. If you can, 15 minutes, but you don't really need much more than that. Especially the lighter your skin is. Um, just do that, every day, and make that like your new habit. So that would be like the other way, and then we'll start getting more into other ways to boost your vitamin D. But anyways, I gotta get going. So thank you everyone who joined me here live tonight. Hope you guys got value from today, and stay tuned. I'll be sending out an email later today. Hope everyone watched the videos that I sent out last night on the compound effect and the one thing. Those are going to really, really help you guys out. So I really hope that you guys are, taking the time to watch us as well. They're just as important as, your diet. Your mental diet is as important as your physical diet. All right, guys, have a good one. Talk to you later.